Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature time once again, and this week we look at the Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, or the Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan of H.P. Lovecraft movies triple feature.
It had to be you.
That's right. Who doesn't love Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan romantic comedies? 2 out of 3 written and at least 1 out of 3 directed by Nora Ephron. She's sort of, their muse. Always adorable. But you know what? You know who I like? I like Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton. Barbara Crampton, just one of the most underrated scream queens. It's like, don't get me wrong, people never say anything bad about her. It's just you don't hear her talked about as much as, say, like Heather Langenkamp, Jamie Lee Curtis, Sigourney Weaver, and the like. Jeffrey Combs, I mean, he's Jeffrey Combs. He is one of those guys. He's like just always there to play a weirdo and or any other type of role. It's just he kind of leans towards weirdo. They've made at least 3 H.P. Lovecraft movies directed by Stuart Gordon and usually produced by Charles Band and or whatever form of production company Charles Band is running at any given point from the 80s to the mid-90s. And as such, fun patterns start to emerge. And I like to look at all 3 of these movies as the different stages of their relationship, from initial meet cute all the way up through miserable marriage that can only be released by horrible, horrible death. Word of note, like rewatching these movies for the triple feature, they're a lot rapier than I remember them being. In all 3 of these movies, there is at least one, if not a couple, attempted rapes. I don't remember Lovecraft really being into rape or, sex at all, so that might be a function of Stuart Gordon. But yeah, so it is in all 3 of these movies, and if that is not your cup of tea, I would skip this triple feature. Our menu is going to include H.P. Lovecraft's Re-Animator, H.P. Lovecraft's From Beyond, and H.P. Lovecraft's Castle Freak. Oh, Re-Animator. I'm going to try very, very hard to not talk about Re-Animator for 15 minutes, even though I could talk about it for 3 hours, because oh my god, Re-Animator is perfect. Herbert West is obsessed with the idea that the human body is a chemical machine, and death is not final so much as an interruption of required chemicals. And if he figures out how to make his reagent, he will conquer death. Yeah, he never quite gets it right between 3 movies, but man, is he not determined. I love Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West because he is obsessed, just single-minded no matter what. Always focused on the work. His roommate Dan, however, is, more interested in being a doctor and or dating Meg, played by Barbara Crampton. It's really adorable in the first scene that they have all together, because when Herbert shows up to move in, Meg rightfully immediately has a bad feeling about the whole thing and just doesn't want anything to do with him because, look at him, he's creepy and he's weird and he just came out of nowhere. And yeah, and Meg is of course completely right about this. Herbert's obsession with the work ends up ruining both his and Dan's career, at least until the next movie in which they're, suddenly okay. Ends up killing Meg's father, Meg's father's doctor friend, who's sort of evil, but we'll get to that in a second, and Meg. So Meg was right on about that. Always listen to your girlfriends, boys. It's really crazy, because if we're looking at Re-Animator in sort of Nora Ephron terms, it's not so much a love triangle as a love quadrangle, because Herbert is in love with the work, and Dr. Hill, played by the late great David Gale, is also obsessed with Herbert's work, but he's also equally obsessed with Meg, who is dating Dan, who is not exactly obsessed with the work so much as interested in the work. So he and Herbert have a strange relationship. Dr. Hill and Meg don't really have a relationship as far as Meg is concerned yet. Dr. Hill has a file of, all sorts of clippings, clothing, bits, and hair from Meg. Dan and Meg are the only healthy, happy relationship until, Dan inadvertently gets her father killed. Herbert and Meg can't stand each other. Herbert kills Dr. Hill when he, tries to steal the work. It's all a big mess. and it's hilarious and wonderful. And it also features an attempted rape when a decapitated head tries to give head to Meg. I warned you guys, right? Yeah, I did. I know I did. Another thing that I can't understate or warn enough about, all of these movies are gross. Like, these are real gruesome horror movies. It's not like, oh, we have horror elements, or it's a thriller, or it's a horror movie, but we turn things on its ear. No, these are straight up horror movies, and I gotta tell you, it was really refreshing to get back into them again. Oh, God. H.P. Lovecraft, Stuart Gordon, Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton. It's gore everywhere. Oh my God, it's so much fun. And rapey. Why was it rapey? Next up, we have H.P. Lovecraft's From Beyond, which, like Re-Animator, is an adaptation of the story of the same name. In this one, certain liberties were taken. It's changed up a lot more than simply, moving it forward in time. The other one, Herbert West Re-Animator, sort of plays as an extended origin story for Herbert and his now named cohort, but it still has a lot of the same elements. From Beyond is a lot more different. We have the introduction of Dr. Pretorius. In the original story, it was all just Crawford Tillinghast, Jeffrey Combs' character, but now he is an assistant to Dr. Pretorius, who is a scientist / S&M enthusiast, and they are working on the Re-Animator, which will help enhance pineal gland function in your brain and thus see different dimensions. Another fun arc over the course of this triple feature is Jeffrey becomes more and more a normal guy as the triple feature goes on, because in the first one he's completely obsessed science nerd. In this one, he is a scientist, but he is not as obsessed with the whole thing as Dr. Pretorius, and starting to get a little color, getting a little sun, looking good. Once Pretorius and Tillinghast get the Re-Animator working, everything goes horribly wrong, because not only does it open up a window to other dimensions, it basically opens up a door, and all sorts of gruesome alien thingies start coming through and end up killing Dr. Pretorius. Crawford runs out of fear, which is a really good bit in the opening. Stylistically, also, Stuart Gordon has cold opens to his movies. We will start the movie in progress, have like a good little nugget of a scene, and then the credits will start. And it's, fun little things tie this triple feature together a lot more than other triple features that we've been doing lately. So, Crawford is, of course, being accused of murdering Pretorius, and it's up to psychiatrist Barbara Crampton, you can tell she's a psychiatrist now because she's wearing glasses, to determine whether or not Crawford's insane and or competent enough to stand trial. I thought Barbara did a great job in this one. Up until this point, she had been playing at worst sorority girl type of parts, and at best, Meg in Re-Animator, which is, a thoughtful young woman. And so she didn't really have a lot of practice playing scientist type, but, with the help of the glasses, she really played the part well, and, getting her hair up in a frumpy bun. And she and police officer Bubba Brownlee, played by the always amazing Ken Foree, go to the Pretorius house to reenact the experiment and thus prove that Crawford is not only not crazy, but didn't murder anybody. They pull off an initial test of the Re-Animator, and unfortunately, it gives Barbara the itch. And so she keeps going back to turn on the Re-Animator, and they all keep getting weirder and weirder. As it turns out, Pretorius is sort of still alive in the other dimension and just has a complete mastery over, I guess you'd call it, flesh, and he can just sort of morph himself into all sorts of horrible creatures that are, really gruesome, really disgusting, and once again, really trying to rape Barbara Crampton. There is a lot of energy expended by our bad guys in these films trying to get into Barbara Crampton's pants. It's through the efforts of Crawford and Bubba Brownlee that they're able to destroy, or at least temporarily turn off the Re-Animator enough for them to get their heads together. But of course, by then the damage is done. The itch that Barbara has is just full on, fire, as evidenced by her donning all the S&M gear that's left over in Pretorius' house. Whereas Jeff is now growing an antenna out of the front of his head. It's gross. It's kind of doodles all around, and now he needs to eat people's brains. Dead ones, they'll satisfy a little bit, but he really wants to live in one. But everything goes as horrible as humanly possible. Crawford is somehow taken along with Pretorius to the other dimension, or he's, screwed forever in weird mutation land. Barbara had to, she set dynamite to blow up the Re-Animator and jumped out of the building, breaking both her legs, leaving her a hysterical mess. All good H.P. Lovecraft adaptations should end up with our main, if not the main character, laughing hysterically at the camera, irretrievably insane, and Bubba was eaten by space bees. It's a weird movie. In terms of our relationship with Jeffrey and Barbara, they've gotten over their initial skittishness, and, with the help of a little pineal gland stimulation, they're starting to dig on each other. So, progress is being made. All right. This movie, also of note, features attempted female on male rape, because Barbara, once she's got that itch, she just will not be denied, even though Crawford is asleep or, in a shallow coma, because he's mutating all over the place at this point. And it's only when Bubba yells at her that she comes to her senses. So, Stuart Gordon, equal opportunity offender. Finally, we have Stuart Gordon's Castle Freak, adapted from H.P. Lovecraft's The Outsider. And this sort of, much like Re-Animator, is sort of an extrapolation on a short story. It's like, what happened to make this guy the Outsider? The Outsider becomes the Castle Freak in this movie. The story leaves it open what he's supposed to look like and why he's horrible. And so this movie kind of fills in those blanks, sets it in contemporary Italy. It's one of the shorter Lovecraft stories, so we build a whole movie. We build a whole movie around one scene, and the movie is it's not terrible. At this point, Jeffrey and Barbara have been married for years. They have fallen completely out of love and just are waiting for each other to die. The in-movie reasons for this is that Jeffrey Combs plays John Riley, not a scientist at all, very healthy-looking tan, is an alcoholic. In a drunken driving incident, wound up blinding their young daughter and killing their even younger son. And so it's almost like Barbara Crampton sort of gets the bad role of the movie, because she's basically negative and against our protagonist throughout the whole movie. But she's got every reason to be, because, he blinded one kid and killed another. But we're supposed to sympathize with John Riley, who is, as it turns out, the illegitimate son of an Italian duke. The legitimate son was chained up and tortured, think sloth, but much, 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 much worse, his entire life, and has now broken free now that his mother is dead. His mother was angry at her father and thus took it out on him forever. And now he's going to get his, which is namely running around causing, at first mischief and then just horrific sexual violence on people. It's really, really gross. Looking at this guy and seeing what he gets up to, because he's just murdering people, or we have this fairly graphic scene where after he captures a prostitute that John brought home one night because he's lonely, he attempts to rape her. But as it turns out, he doesn't have the equipment for it anymore, because his mom really, really hated him. And so he just violently, claws and bites her to death. It's really disgusting and really horrible and probably misogynistic. But it's like, that kind of goes into the whole how misogynistic are horror movies in general, because women always die. But there's a lot of attention that is paid to her genitalia and sexual organs. So yeah, this one probably very misogynistic. But it's up to our drunken hero to save the day by the end of the movie, which he does at the cost of his own life. Sorry, spoilers for a movie that's 21 years old and was direct to video, so you never saw it. Barbara Crampton, finally free of Jeffrey Combs, may be able to live a life of normalcy in other horror movies. Oh, wait, she's in You're Next. Nah, she's just in trouble forever because she's just wonderful. She's just great in horror movies, as is Jeffrey Combs. Hopefully, we've got like many, many, many more years of them making horror movies. But if you're in the mood for H.P. Lovecraft inspired fare, Stuart Gordon's adaptations of Re-Animator, From Beyond, and The Outsider, aka Castle Freak, are a really, really good time. Really gruesome, really gross, really horror movies, and really, really rapey. That last bit's probably going to be a deal breaker for a lot of you. I don't blame you, but hopefully next week I'll have something that is a little less offensive to everyone. Until then.